Okay, you're very welcome to another Tuesday here with me, Dilbert Singer. And welcome to our online conversation, Insight Matters into Parenting. My name is Dilbert Singer, and I'm a broadcaster, a trainee psychotherapist, and founder of Insight Matters, a psychotherapy, counseling, and wellness center based in Dublin's Capel Street. And I started Insight Matters with Anne-Marie, my wife, just over a decade ago. And now we have just over 100 therapists working with us. And together we have the absolute privilege of supporting over 600 clients nationally and internationally. Well, do join us for a series of talks here, all aimed at empowering you to take charge of your own mental health and wellness. Join me and my guests, where we will combine insights and practical tools that can help enhance your overall well-being and quality of life. You can always get in touch with us here at Insight Matters at info@insightmatters.ie or visit our website at insightmatters.ie. So today's topic, parenthood, is amazing, but it can be tough. The transition into first-time parenthood can be massively challenging and comes with a roller coaster of emotions that you never even thought existed. It's like you suddenly this parallel universe opens up to you, and you're like, where has this been all my life? Then there's, of course, moving from one child to two children and three children and more, and becoming a parent really impacts on every aspect of your life: your identity, your relationship with yourself and others, your career, your outlook on life, your values. The list goes on and on and on. So the question is, how can parents and their children get the most out of this experience and not just survive it, but actually thrive from it? Well, today we are very lucky to be joined by Inside Matters' very own relationship and parent mentor, Aoife Ryan. You're very welcome, Aoife. How are you today?
I am delighted to be here, Dill, and I'm listening to you going through that, and my head is blown just thinking about all of those things. And I'm remembering when I became a new mum, and I was terrified. I was terrified, and the sense of responsibility that I felt for this new life, and I went when my child was about 3 days old to the place of, oh my goodness, I'm responsible for how they turn out as an adult. Are they going to be a kind person? Are they going to be morally good? And I'm sitting here with the 3-day-old baby thinking, oh God, how am I going to do it? So yeah, I can relate. Becoming a parent and being a parent is probably one of the most difficult things in the world, but also a very rewarding thing. But it doesn't come without without fear and without worry at all. And being a mum, I think, is very very tough at times.
And the interesting thing is, it's like a lot of people have this perception that it should come natural to us to be parents, and I personally found it uh, the opposite. I didn't feel like, yes, of course, there were some elements that came naturally, but there were some elements where I felt I was having to learn everything. Like I had no real children around me when I became a parent. So for me, something like a car seat. Yeah, so I remember marveling at this car seat, going, how is it I managed to get to, I was a 40-year-old woman, you know, in tears, trying to figure out something as simple as a car seat. It really does. It's not really that natural in some aspects, isn't it?
No, and I was the same. I came to motherhood a little bit later on, and I had experienced nearly all of my friends with children, and I had minded children since I was 12 years old, and I loved them. And people had said to me, "You're such a natural. You're going to be a great mum." But having my own kids was so different. And I think for me, one of the things that really stands out is that I felt the expectations of the world on my shoulders, and I felt that I was being watched by everybody for how I was going to be with my child, and I felt judgment. I felt judgment coming in, whether it was real or perceived doesn't really matter because I felt it. And I felt I went for about 3 years. I kind of went read every book that I could read, went to parenting courses, did everything that everybody told me I should do. And it was only after about 3 years, when I had my second child, who was about a year old at that stage, that I suddenly stopped and I said, Aoife, you know what you need to do for your kids. Trust yourself here. And I started trusting myself and really leaning into my intuition, because we all have an intuition and we all have an instinct, but the world kind of came at me in that moment because I wanted to do it right so badly and not fuck up my kids. So, um, but
That's
in
the
doing
aim.
that,
Don't fuck
yeah,
up the kids.
don't fuck up the kids. But in doing that, I had actually gone away and not focused on what was important, and not leaned into my own instinct around it. So I remember one day my husband said, "Oh, thank God you're back. You're back again. You're back." And I know that we're going to be okay now, because I just had gone off altogether. So I think that's what I say to parents now. Slow it down a little bit, and remember, you've got this. You'll know your kids. Just take the time, and don't listen to all the outside voices, because everybody has an opinion about it. Everybody has an opinion about something.
So we're joined by Aoife Ryan, who's a relationship and parent mentor. For those who are watching, if you have any questions, do put in a question to Aoife, and we'll only be too happy to have a discussion and conversation with you, because this is very much about a conversation, empowering you watching this, and as I said at the start, it's about helping parents and children get the most out of this experience, because let's face it, it's limited. We have a limited time where we are in each other's pockets, so to speak, until our children grow up and go off into the world. So why not try and use this time to get the most out of it, and not just look at it from a point of view, or I just have to get through this. God help me, just survive this, but actually thrive from it. You as a parent thrive from it, and as a child also thrive from it. Now you were saying
I
about the
love that term, Dale, and I think that's really important. I just like to affirm that we don't want to survive. We really want to thrive, because we're on this journey with our kids. We're walking side by side, accompanying them through everything. And we're on our own journey, our parental and life journey, and our kids are on their journey. And we want it to be a whole kind of big, felt, beautiful journey, not this battle or war that we're just getting through. And it's hard. I think we can't underestimate how difficult it is at times. And so if we can resource ourselves to really be in that place of thriving, I think that's hugely important for us as parents, and then for our kids as well.
because I was just thinking, I often ask my kids, like, I'm in my training as to be a psychotherapist in the last 3 years. Like, Phoenix was walking into his kindergarten that same week I started in DBS, and I've gained so much from the training, and it's all about being in the here and now. It's all
Yeah.
about not focusing too much on the past, not focusing too much in the future, but right here, this is the moment that we have. And I often ask my children, how are things going? Are you enjoying your childhood? What do you think of us as parents? How are you? How is your experience of just us being together in all of this? And usually I kind of get one word: good. Yeah, but I still got something, and I think it's something that I want to check in with them on an ongoing basis, because I find I know I think I speak for many. When we look back at our childhood, there's so much, like, many of us get stuck in that place where we wish we had had a better childhood, or that maybe we could change our childhood, but you can't change it because it's
Yeah.
done. It's in the past. All you can do is understand it, accept it, and integrate it, but you can't change it. So if you kind of have the conversation with your kids now, as you are living this moment, they can actually contribute, and not, this is not just a one-way street, it's a two-way street.
Yeah, and I do that with my kids as well. What I often ask them, is what do you need from me? What do you need from me that maybe um, I'm not giving you? Because as parents, we're all doing our best, and we all feel that we're giving absolutely, all of our love, and we're directing it in exactly the right way. But when I look back on my own, I know that my parents loved me dearly, but I didn't always get what I needed. So I think I try and check in with my kids and ask them, what do you need from me right now? What do you need from us as parents? Are we doing okay? Are we getting it right? And of course they'll have a list of things that no, you're doing really wrong. But that's okay. Most of the time I've one kid who doesn't say very much, just says, "No, you're great. Everything is good," and the other who usually has a list for me. But and that's the beauty of it, recognizing that they're different. You don't parent your kids exactly the same because they're different. If you have more than one, yeah, we have one who has a permanent list of things we need to do better on. But it keeps us on our toes.
You've
Yeah.
got to be able to take the feedback, because you can't be asking questions saying, "Oh, give me your comments, give me your feedback," and then when you get it, run the opposite direction.
No, and I think that's really important, because if we want our kids to own stuff and be responsible, we have to own our own stuff as well, and for example, this morning I had a little bit of a Barney with my daughter, and I was rushing, and I was under pressure, and I didn't sleep so good last night, so I was tired, and I was kind of at her, do this, do that, get your coat, and she kind of pushed back on that, and I reacted instead of my golden rule: respond, don't react, respond. But I
So
I
it all goes
reacted.
out the
It
window.
went out the window at 10 to 9 this morning, and I said, "Oh my God, this is so difficult." And she stopped me in my tracks, and she said, "Mum, that's your stuff, and you're bringing it here, and you're really, you started all of this. I didn't." And I had to hold my hand up and say, "You're right. I started this because I'm not in a great spot right now. I'm rushing. I'm under pressure, and and I started." So I owned it, and then we both just laughed, and she went off, and it was fine, And she said, "I love you," and I said, "I love you. See you later." And but I had to own that. It wasn't anything to do with her. That was mine, and once I owned it, it was okay. So if we want our kids to be responsible, we have to take responsibility for our part in everything as well.
And it
Yeah.
happened in the moment.
Yeah.
Like she stopped you in your tracks in the moment, so you were able to turn it around and repair and move
Yeah.
on, as opposed to what most people do, is, afterwards, after the Barney, you
Yeah.
go off, and most of us go off going, "Oh God, it was an awful way to start the day," and the child goes off, and then you might talk about it later, and you still be able to repair. But when it happens in the moment, you actually can fix it straight away. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. Well, that's something that we've tried to encourage from the time they were really small, although sometimes my husband will say, "That's your fault now because you've encouraged that." But we've always said to them, if we are being unfair or unjust, or if you think that we're wrong, stop us. Say it to us right there and then. And I hope that we're both mature enough to be able to receive that. And that's where the personal work comes in, and looking at yourself and your stuff. Um, it's not them being cheeky. It's not them speaking out of turn, but it's them just saying, as an adult would, "Hold on a minute. you really can't speak to me like that because it doesn't feel good for me, and you're being unfair, you know. And sometimes we'll have a bit of a back and forth. I don't think I'm being unfair. This is where I'm coming from, you know, blah blah blah. But and it'll go back and forth a bit, but we all feel heard in that, and we all feel you know, that we have a voice in the family. And I think it's really important that they learn that their feelings matter. And just because I'm older and bigger, although they're nearly the same height as me now, but you know, that isn't everything. That I'm not the boss of them. You know, I'm in a partnership with them, and we're doing our best to navigate it. Um, yeah, I absolutely, it's something that, and so now at 11, she is absolutely able to stop me and say, "Look, Mum, that's your stuff. It's not, this
That's your
isn't
bag
on
to
me."
carry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic because I think I mentioned it to you before when I think Phoenix was in arms when I was kind of really trying to find my footing in relation to what kind of parent I wanted to be because I knew I didn't I suppose I wanted to build on the my experience of being parented, you know, and saying that very kindly in respect to my parents and how me and so many of us were parented, you know, because I think previous generations didn't know better, so they couldn't do better. And I
Mm.
came across this great book by John Kabat-Zinn called Mindful Parenting,
Yeah.
and the whole premise of it is that you have to recognize the sovereignty of your child. Your child is a separate entity, and so I never heard of the word sovereignty in relationship to a person. You usually think of sovereignty in relationship to a country, but
Hmm.
imagine if your child, think of your child as a country, you know, would you invade them? You know, would you go in there and tell them what to do and stop speaking their language? You know, all of that stuff that the countries that have been colonized would have experienced. So you wouldn't do that in nowadays. And so if you started looking at your child as a sovereign being, you would then, when you're engaging in those conversations, you would actually realize, or you'd actually stop yourself and say, "Oh, hang on a second, they have a voice, and they need to be able to. I need to give them space for them to speak because we are
Yeah.
bigger, you know, and we can be, because we're bigger, we can be intimidating to them, and we
Hmm.
need to create that space, safe space for them, right?"
Yeah. I think we often, I suppose what I would say is we always strive to be separate. And in relationship with our intimate partners, in relationship with our friends, in relationship with our children. And one of the hardest places to achieve that separateness is in the relationship with our children. You know, we're very enmeshed a lot of the time. Um, and I suppose that's something that I strive for continually, is to maintain that separateness, because through that separateness, it brings us together. We're not in each other's chaos. We're not enmeshed like that. We're standing separately. We're walking, you know, along roads that are beside each other, but we're not on top of each other's paths. We're not crossing over. We're just walking side by side. And I think that that's so important for so many reasons for us all. You know, I think that sometimes people talk about that loss of identity after you've had a child. Who am I? I'm just a mother, you know, but no, you're an individual. You're a human. You're everything that you were before you had your child, and your
More.
child, and more, because you're a mother now as well, or a father, you know, as a parent. But it's, if we're enmeshed, we lose our sense of self, and our children can't develop their sense of self if they're enmeshed with us. So having that separateness allows me to have my identity and know who I am and continue on my journey. And it gives our children the space to develop their sense of self and who they are and where they fit in the world.
Mhm.
Um, I think I was reading an article earlier on by Dr. Deborah McNamara in the States, and it's based on research by Gordon Newfield, and it's that research all about the neuroscientific and attachment research. and it's about relational rest. And I just thought that term is so beautiful. And they said relational rest, I have it written down, means that they can take our relationships for granted, and that we're unwavering across context and conduct. So no matter what, their relationship with us is sacred and unique, and there, that no matter how they behave, no matter what the context is, they can rest in the knowing that we're there without condition. And when we're separate, that can happen. But when we're enmeshed, the lines get blurred and things get confused.
Yeah, there's
So
an agitation. There's an agitation there because you don't feel quite at peace. I love that
yeah,
relational rest. Oh my
yeah,
gosh, how
I
many
think it's beautiful. Yeah,
how many of us actually got a chance to experience that, so
yeah.
and just to I suppose I want to talk a little bit about parents who are with young children who are kind of new at this. I think between yourself and if your children are older, as in they're teenagers, right?
11 and going to be 13 at the end of
Yeah,
the month.
exactly.
Yeah,
And I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and sometimes I think that the transition into parenting is very very difficult. And I have a question here that's come in saying, how do you reason with a toddler that can't speak yet? And I just want to share. I was at a coffee shop the other day, and I was just immediately reminded of those early days when you're with a like a baby in a buggy or a sling, and suddenly you're public property. The moment you're pregnant, you become public property. People
yeah,
just come and talk to you. You've got a new baby, people come and talk to you, and suddenly you said earlier on about the expectations of society, all that pressure, not that you put on yourself, but society has put on you. I was able to witness, and so there was a young mom there with a maybe a 6-month old or 7-month old, and at a coffee shop, and this woman just happened to sit by, and they just started chatting, and I was waiting for my sandwich, and I could see this happening, and this older woman was like, "Oh, he's so good, and is he bold, all that stuff," and I could feel my own nervous system getting activated, because I remember as a young parent, when someone said that to me, I used to always feel so annoyed and angry. It's like going, every baby is good. you know
yeah.
no baby wakes up and going, I'm going to be bad today. It's like, this is not like boss baby. This is, they're just being. And then this whole thing about being bold, and I heard the mother saying something, oh, as long as he's fed, he's happy. And there was so many things that were being exchanged, and I was going, oh my god, I need to get away from here, because I just remember how difficult I found that time in my life, because I knew I was trying to be authentic and find my own way, and not let the world's expectation of how to parent fall in on me. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. No, and as I said earlier, I experienced the very same thing, to find your own truth in it, and in how you feel and what's going on for you in it, rather than the weight of expectation of the world, is incredibly difficult, and it takes a lot of resourcing of yourself to enable you to stand firm and know, who am I, what do I need, what's going on here, and to do that, it is difficult. um just thinking of your question there, how do you reason with a toddler who can't speak? You don't. Toddlers, you can't reason with a toddler. They're not developmentally able to reason. But what they can do is they can relate, and they can what they're so if a toddler, I'm making an assumption, and I could be wrong here, but I'm making an assumption from that question that it's perhaps a toddler who's really starting to show have their own mind, and show that themselves, to be separate,
Yeah.
from you.
And that's a developmental stage, because they
Exactly.
realize that they're actually not part of you, and they can say no, which is a huge game changer for them, because before that moment they just thought that they were part of you, because sure, they,
Exactly.
they and that they have to do that because it's part of their survival. How they survive is by being near you. If without
Yeah.
being near you, they might not survive. So, but then they get to that point, and that's when sometimes trouble starts, when the parent suddenly feels that the child is maybe even intentionally defying them, and
Yes.
testing those boundaries.
Yeah, absolutely. And what the child is doing is just realizing I'm me. Oh my God, I have a body and I'm me and I'm not attached. I'm separate. Um and they're expressing a need. If they are stamping their feet, or if they are refusing to move, or if they are screaming the shop down, what they're doing is they're showing you a piece of their inner world. And they're showing, maybe I really desperately need to have the chocolate cookie. It's, and it's huge. And as a parent, we're looking at it with parent eyes and an adult developed brain. And you don't need that. You're not having that because we're going to be having dinner when we get home. So and you can't reason because again, at that developmental stage, they're not able to reason in the same rational way that we are. But what we can do for them is we can relationally hold them in that place of outrage or upset, and we can hear their really big emotions, and we can comfort them in that moment. And when they're heard and comforted, that changes things. And it might take a little bit of time. It mightn't be as fast as we want it to be, or perhaps as we even need it to be in situations. Um, but that's we relate, we acknowledge, we validate, and then we distract. At that young age, distraction is a technique. And it can be utilized. But the most important thing, so that they are learning about that relational resting, is to acknowledge and validate. Oh my goodness, you feel really, really strongly about this. Oh, I can hear how upset you are. Oh my goodness.
Those
Oh,
are
you're
big
so
emotions. We're
upset.
having some big emotions today.
Yeah, you're so upset about this. You're so angry. Oh, you're stamping your feet. You're so angry about this. And then in that way, you're modeling for them. You're putting words on feelings that they don't know. They just feel it. They don't have the words to put on it. But you're putting words on their big feelings. You're modeling empathy and compassion and kindness, and they're being heard. And that's the most important thing. They're feeling all of that is love. All of that is creating that relational safety and that unconditional love. I'm not going to give out to you. I'm not going to get cross. I'm just hearing you. I'm seeing it, and I'm holding you right now exactly where you're at. But in order to do that, we have to be in a good place ourselves. And
Big time,
that's the tricky bit.
big
That's
time.
the tricky bit.
We're gonna come to that, because in that place, because normally parents would be, the reaction usually like, don't be silly, forget that, you're being bold, the child would feel dismissed, right?
Yeah.
And that's when they'll get louder and louder and louder, because then they didn't get that holding.
Their need wasn't met.
Exactly. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, as therapists, that's what we do with clients. When clients talk to us about what's going on in their life, what most powerful things that you say and reflect it back. I can hear this is really important to you. I can hear how upsetting this must be for you, or I can hear how angry this must make you. And that in itself makes them go, oh wow, someone hurt me. That
Yeah.
this is so okay. This is new. And then you can actually move on, as opposed to getting stuck in that place, which I think a lot of kids can get stuck in if they're not acknowledged and recognized for what's happening at the moment.
Yeah, and I think it's just really important to mention this. If we dismiss the small things, they're not going to bring us the big things.
Mm.
Later on, oftentimes people say, about teenagers, they don't talk, they don't tell me anything, and sometimes, not always, and I don't mean this in a judgmental or blaming way, but sometimes we might have dismissed the little things that they brought us when they were younger. So they learned, well, there's no point in bringing it because I'm not going to be listened to.
That's hard.
Yeah, it is hard, and it's but I think it's important that their feelings, even if it's about, you know, a chocolate cookie, or wearing they want to wear two odd boots, that don't match, or socks
That's
that don't
Xavier.
match,
That's
or
my daughter.
something.
She does that all the time.
Yeah,
She likes to clash on purpose. She'll wear a
yeah,
sandal and a welly. I
yeah.
kind of I love it now, but at the start it used to drive me ballistic because
Yeah,
I'm
and
so
that's, and especially as a parent, if you've been raised in a very perfectionistic, is that a word?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Household,
Yeah.
where or you're very worried about what other people will say or think about you. I brought my son to the shops one time with three pudding bowls. You know those plastic bowls that you get a Christmas pudding in? And he wore them as hat for about 3 months. He just wore them
3 months.
permanently. And
3 months.
3 months, morning, noon, and night, he used to sleep with them and everything. And I remember, and then he had one, and then he found another one, and then he had three placed on his head, and he was sitting in the trolley. And I remember one of the neighbors saying to me, "You do realize that your child has got pudding bowls on their head?" And I said, "Pudding bowls? I can't see any pudding bowls, but I see a very stylish hat." And the neighbor was looking at me, and my child was looking at me, and I was looking at, I was just kind of, but, but, it was really important for my child that this was his sense of style, and this is what he felt comfortable in, and this is what he wanted. And it wasn't doing anybody any harm. But if I had been very worried about what other people think, I probably wouldn't have done that. And I would have said, no, that's silly. They're pudding bowls, and but there was meaning and purpose in it for him, that he needed to do that, and it was important. And, and of course it was safe. It wasn't causing any harm to anybody or to himself. So I think it's really important to recognize that things that we mightn't think are important through our adult eyes and our lens of the world, if our child is showing us and telling us that it's very important to them, it's really important that we hear them in that.
Exactly. Jeannie Murray says, "Hi, Aoife," and she gives a big wave. Any questions, any comments? Keep them coming on. We are broadcasting live here on Facebook, Inside Matters Facebook page, on a YouTube channel, and also on a LinkedIn page as well. Uh, Going back to what you were talking there, Aoife, around your relationship with yourself. Now, this is something that people just don't talk enough about, in particular around parenting, because and this is what really the crux of the work that you do as a relationship and parent mentor. Talk to me about how the relationship with yourself can actually impact on you as a parent.
Oh, can actually impact it. Absolutely impacts it. How, I suppose, if we start with how we feel about ourselves and our story that has come with us through our life, if we are not conscious and cognizant of that, it will come out unconsciously in how we parent our children. So it's so important to know, and reflect on our story, on how we were parented, how we got here, and what we've brought with us from that. And I think very often, sometimes the rage that comes up or the anger button that's been pressed by our child didn't place that button, they just pressed on it, but that button
The
was
button was there.
placed
Yeah, the button was
very
there
far
before the
back.
human. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
the button was there very far back. But our kids have a way of pressing and agitating those things that we've probably very necessarily put away and just parceled up and boxed off. Our children reflect back to us like a mirror, often parts of ourselves that we've had to hide. So understanding ourselves and having this really intimate relationship with ourselves allows us, when we see ourselves as a whole being, we're going to see our children as whole beings as well. But if there's parts of ourselves that we've had to hide away and that we're not able to show to the world, we're not going to be really in a position to allow our children to show all the parts of themselves. So they're intricately linked. That relationship with ourselves is intricately linked with the relationship that we're going to have with our child.
It's a because I think immediately to, I suppose, one thing, um, with Phoenix and myself, one of the buttons I felt that of mine that was there that he would press, and he wouldn't do it on purpose. It was just
No,
sometimes he went through a stage where if he was going to try something new, he would immediately say, "Oh, I can't do that," you know, and that used to uh, really get me, because I was like, what do you mean you can't do that? You haven't even tried. You've given up before you've even tried, you know? And I think, and I just wonder why this used to really bother me. And I think it's obviously with the work in relation to the course and therapy, I realized that I never had a chance to actually say, I can't do that, because I had to, there was no one around me that did it for me or helped me do it. I had to figure it out for myself and do it because my survival depended on it. So
yeah,
so to have someone, and so my own child, say I can't do that without even trying, and maybe not even, like, I felt like he wasn't quite pushing himself to do it. I had to remind myself, look, this is a 4-year-old that's in front of me. This is a 5-year-old that's in front of me, or a 6-year-old that's in front of me. How am I possibly, even, like, I wouldn't see that there was a young child in front of me, because all I could see was my own self, having to overcome adversity by myself. And now he was a child who actually felt that he could actually say it, and
yeah,
that was actually a good thing. Amory actually,
yeah,
you brought it to my attention. Isn't it great that he's actually able to say that to you? Because
yeah,
I bet you, Dil, you never got a chance to say it. And I'm like, yes, you're right, Amory.
yeah. But I think that that's absolutely it. It's what an opportunity there is, what an opportunity our children provide for us, for our, they show us areas where we can get to know ourselves better and have a greater understanding of ourselves, and then that opportunity extends out into the relationship with our kids. So it's this co-creational process. They're showing us things about ourselves, and and we're then working that back into the relationship with them. So it's co-creational all the time. But what a beautiful opportunity for you there to kind of go, you know, I hear, Phoenix, right now, that you can't, that you feel that you can't do this. This is really hard for you, and to kind of really sit with that for yourself, how sad it was that I just had to do it and I could never say I can't. And that was a tragedy for you as a child, to not be held, in that way. So how
And
beautiful.
that's what parenting does. That parenting, it is an opportunity, as you said, for you to learn about yourself. But that's hard, I think, for a lot of parents, because they're juggling so much. They're trying to do everything, work, look after the kids, and all that. And then all of this is kind of bubbling up inside of them. And I can see why some would just say, no, no, that's not happening. I'm just gonna shut it off,
Yeah.
push it down, this never happened, and get on with it and power through. But ultimately all that stuff is just gonna keep bubbling up over and over again, and some one day explode in
Yeah,
probably most.
either in you or your child, because there's a lovely term that what's unconscious in the parent becomes unconscious in the child,
No,
and
say
yeah,
it again, say it again, say that again. Oh
what's
my God, mind blown. Say it again.
yeah, what's unconscious in the parent becomes unconscious in the child, and it's really, I mean, it's huge. It's like, oh God, okay, okay. I
Yeah,
had to
after that,
really,
don't fuck him up, don't fuck him up. Whatever.
yeah, but it's so true that it comes out. It comes out for ourselves. We can bottle things up for so long, but not forever. They appear somewhere, either in us or in our children. And it's always remembering that behavior, and particularly with our kids, because we often think behavior is just behavior, but behavior is always a communication to us. It's always a communication about what's going on in an individual's inner world, and most especially with our kids. So I'm always saying to parents, get underneath the behavior. Is it an unmet need? Is it something else? What's going on underneath that?
So
And
you're
of
saying
course,
when a child is acting out,
acting out,
yeah.
acting in, being a perfectionist, being, wanting to be top of the class, um, being throwing tantrums, being stubborn, whatever it is, it's always a communication of, there's always a communication. They're communicating with us. And if we can see it like that, it becomes easier for us to manage it as well and to deal with it. Because if otherwise we go into that place of, they're just bold, they're driving me mad, and they're really trying to annoy me now, and you go into that place of, can they not see that I'm having a bad day already? And they're going out of their way to act up and wind me up. You go into that defensive place.
And it's antagonistic, it's
Yeah.
adversarial, it's just
Yeah.
conflict.
Yeah, conflict arises. So if we can see always that communication is a measure of the individual's internal world, what are they communicating to us? And especially for our kids. I've one child who finds school a little bit challenging, and sometimes it will be, just refusing to get out of bed, really dragging the feet in the morning, taking ages in the bathroom, taking an hour to have a piece of toast, And I could look, and then going to brush the teeth and taking 25 minutes, and you're just like, what's going on? And, I could look at that and go, they're just being a pain in the arse and really acting the maggot.
Yeah.
Or I can look at that and say, God, school must be really threatening and really difficult for them, and because what they're doing is they're really showing me that going into school is a huge challenge. So
And
rather
of
than
course
look
it
at,
is. Yeah,
yeah,
and of course it is. Why, like, it is, I think people forget this. I think people have this idea, school is important. It's important for them to go to school, so there's all these kind of messages that we've got, but we forget how difficult it was. I still remember when you're walking into school, I still remember the perpetual feeling of anxiety, sweaty palms, sick to the pit of my stomach, walking in the doors, or the smell of the school, that kind of like bleachy smell that if I still get, it comes all flooding back. So it's
yeah,
incredibly difficult for a child to go into school, leaving the safety of their family and home, and going into this classroom of the other kids, and not knowing what's, and not having any control of what's
yeah.
going to happen in the day. So we have to acknowledge that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just because they have to do it, as you say, doesn't mean that it's easy, And so it's really looking at that behavior and kind of, and I've said to my child, gosh, on mornings like that, I've kind of said, wow, I can see that this is really hard for you. I know how difficult this is, you know that you have to go into school, and I know that you don't want to. So what can we, so we kind of come to that place of, you're really showing me how much you don't want to go in, but we also know that you have to go in.
Mhm.
So what can we do? What's going to help you? What do you
What,
need?
what do you
You
need
know,
from me,
what
as you
do you
say?
need from me right now? Yeah.
Because Xavier used to have this thing about, and it used to really perplex us until it kind of the penny dropped. She would get so anxious in the morning about going to. We didn't realize it was about going to school. She would get really upset around a sock. So the sock didn't quite fit around her feet properly, or they bunched up. God forbid they
Yeah.
bunched up when
Bunched
you
up.
pulled
Yeah.
down the pants, or when she put her foot into the boot, something happened to the sock, or the shoe didn't feel right. I many a times I remember carrying Xavier and putting her in the car or in the bike barefoot or sockless, because it's like, okay, if the sock is giving you trouble, let's just take the sock off. And then of course we realize, yeah, no, that's she's expressing her anxiety about going to school, and she's focusing it
On
completely
the
on the
sock.
sock. And of
Yeah.
course, as parents, we're like, what's going on? What's the story with the sock? If you get yourself caught in it, but then you step back and go, no, this is the first time she's going to school, and it's really scary for her. So she's expressing it in some other way,
Yeah.
Uh,
And
spe-
that's it, because kids don't have the vocabulary and the words that we do, so they don't have the and they don't, sometimes they don't know, they just know the feeling, they know that this feels, "Bleh," and but they can't, but they don't even know what that is. So again, it comes out in, this insane obsession with the sock, or the intense focus on something, or the taking an hour to brush your teeth and brush your hair, and as a parent, especially a busy parent trying to get out the door to work, I mean, it's, how do we manage that, and how do we work with that, and how do we could just really go off on one and lose the head, but it's kind of, I suppose, to constantly remind ourselves, they're telling me something here, and how do I manage it, how can I work with this, and how can I fit it into my busy schedule, because sometimes you literally don't have time for it, and it's figuring out how to work with that, and acknowledging to yourself, because it's really important that we acknowledge to ourselves as well, this is really hard, it's tricky, and it's not straightforward, and you can have all the theory in the world, but real life comes in as well, and it makes it more difficult. So I think we have to be gentle with ourselves through all of it as well. We can be very mindful of where our kids are, but be very mindful and kind to ourselves in it as well.
Big time, because you just reminded me of kind of the behavior that's there from the very start. And I remember someone saying to me, "No, I came upon an article or something. As little teeny tiny babies, they already know how to tell you when they're hungry.
Absolutely.
Crying is like you've gone past already. They're already over hungry. The
Yeah.
little gesture they make with their fist or their hand. This
Yeah.
if you manage to get catch them at this stage, or
Yeah.
even when they kind of move their head this way, that
When
means they're
Yeah,
hungry. They're
the
looking for the
rooting.
breakfast. Yeah.
Yeah, or the tongue, when you can see their little tongue going, or their lips moving, and I think it's, I didn't, I'm a bit sad because I didn't appreciate that when my babies were small. It's only I came to this work after I had my children, and I really, there is a part of me that's sad that I didn't come to it before they were born. But I'm making my peace with that. But I think if we, I really would love to have kind of these relational parenting courses in hospitals before, as the kind of antenatal care, because I
That'd be
think,
amazing.
we'll all figure out how to do the bottles and change a nappy, and that we'll figure that practical stuff out, and there's lots of people to show us. But if we could really learn about that attachment, and that how babies from the moment they're born are trying to connect with us. They'll follow us, even though they can't see more than, you know, the kind of 6 inches or 12 inches. They're following us. They're really looking for that connection. If we can tune into that, we'd it would solve so many things.
We have a question coming in. If having to cope with wanting to be on top of your profession and being good parents can be difficult sometimes.
It can be
Mm,
exhausting. I think
mm,
it can be difficult at times is an understatement. I think it can be exhausting. I know that, you know, having gone back to work myself and gone back to college in the last couple of years, with my kids, my child said to me, I preferred it when you didn't work, it was better. And I want you to stop. And, oh, I'm doing all of this for you, you know? I want you to stop. So we had to work that one out. But yeah, it's exhausting. And I guess, you know, you can't be all things to everybody.
absolutely.
But fundamentally, you do have to try and be everything to yourself.
Mm, mm,
So it's figuring out what you need
mm,
and trying to meet your needs as well. Very often as parents, particularly, we place everybody else's needs, be it our employer's needs, be it our elderly parents' needs, be it our husband or partner's needs, or be it our children's needs, or even friends. We place all of those. You know, I very often hear parents say, I'm at the end of the list. You
mm,
know, well, why? You know, we don't have to be top, but we should at least be equal.
mm, mm,
And I think that that's extremely important. And you know, I guess, you know, it's the juggling act of parenting and profession and feeling that neither are ever getting the best. And I suppose I would always say, come back to you in that. Are you getting what you need from both of those things as
mm.
well?
Because that's a lot of pressure, even that wanting to be at the top of your profession. You know, I remember when I decided to become a parent, I very much, you know, I knew my priorities change. I wanted my priorities to change.
Yeah.
I wanted, as I said, being a parent is a kind of limited time offer. You know, I wanted to be present to it as much as possible. And for the first time in my life, I learned to say no. I said no to gigs that I would have loved to have done before, or but they would have taken too much of my time. And I thought, you know what, if it's meant for me, it'll come back again. You know, once what it's like, I often feel like if you have your intention set, whether it's for your day, whether it's for your life, or whether it's for parenting, if you have that intention set, then things have a way of falling into place. That's the approach I took, because I thought this is what I want to achieve, and then other things will fall into place. Because I think trying to do everything at the same high octane level that I did before being a parent would just mean I would just fall down in a heap, and then I would be no use to myself or to my children or to my
Yeah.
parents. You know.
I think sometimes it can even be hard to know what your intentions are because sometimes you're just barreling along and surviving, you know? So I guess I think an understanding, you know, perhaps how it is that you need to be at the very top of your profession and the very best here and there and in the other place, that may be helpful, you know, to an individual as well. But there is no doubt that being a mum particularly, is challenging because as women, and this is probably a much bigger discussion for another day about the whole notion of the gender binary and stereotypes and everything, but it's you know, as women, society places women in a particular bracket and in a
We're the
and
primary caregivers, right? We are the primary caregivers.
and
As
we take that on, and we go with it, and we also want to fulfill our own goals and expectations and dreams of working and achieving in the workplace, So I think that I actually do feel that that's a wider kind of discussion that needs to take place in society. But I suppose for the purposes of today, I would say, acknowledging that it is really difficult, and that trying to juggle everything, don't underestimate that, and just I say go gently in it all, because it's not easy.
That's it. So listen, if I will leave it there, thank you so much for joining me here. Aoife Ryan, who's a parent and relationship mentor at Inside Matters. And you are taking appointments at the moment, Aoife, aren't you?
Yes, I
Yeah,
am. Yeah.
great stuff. So we are hoping to do this on a monthly basis. If you'll join me on online here, because I think we've every time I speak to you, I'm like, oh my god, I got so much from that conversation. And I know my kids are going to benefit from this conversation as well. And we hope hopefully do this again the following month. And you do get in touch with us if you'd like us to focus our conversation on a particular topic
Yeah.
next month. I think we are open to that, aren't we, Eva?
I think that would be fabulous. Yeah. If people have any ideas or questions or suggestions for us, a focus of a topic, or just general questions that they want answered, I think we would love to do that, and see where it goes. Yeah, it would be
Perfect.
super.
Thank you so much, Aoife. So that's Aoife Ryan, our relationship and parent mentor at Inside Matters. You can get in touch with us by visiting our website, insidematters.ie. We have come to the end of our conversation today. But remember, all these conversations that we're having online are very much with the view to empowering you to take charge of your own mental health and wellness. And today we were talking about it in the context of parenting. Join me and my guests for future conversations where we will combine insights and practical tools that can help enhance your overall well-being. So this is Dil Vikramasinghe wishing you well and reminding you that insight matters for your mental health and your wellness. Take care and have a good day.
Bye.